And thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Charlene Israel. Police have now ruled out at least one of the suspicious passengers in their investigation of that missing Malaysian airliner. But they still have no concrete clues to explain what happened to the plane. Meanwhile, they're racing the clock to find the plane's black boxes before the homing signals stop working. Police now say they've identified the two suspicious men traveling with stolen passports, both of them Iranians, and the younger 19-year-old is believed to have been seeking asylum in Germany. The two men bought their tickets in Thailand and entered Malaysia together. The use of stolen passports initially raised concerns about terrorism, but police say it's unlikely the younger Iranian was part of a terrorist group. Still, Malaysian authorities are not ruling out any possibilities in the investigation.
We are looking into 4 areas. 1 is hijacking, 2, sabotage, 3, psychological problem of the passengers and crew, and 4, personal problem among the passengers and crew.
Today marks the 4th day since Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 disappeared, and there are still no signs of the Boeing 777 and no clues as to what happened. Over the past few days, search teams have scoured thousands of miles of sea around the area where the plane was last detected, between the northeast coast of Malaysia and southwest Vietnam. The search continues from air, land, and sea, and now has expanded beyond the plane's flight path, with the focus turning to the western coast of Malaysia. A land search is underway in Vietnam.
We need to keep an open mind, continue the search, find the wreckage, find those black boxes, and begin to solve this mystery.
Families of those on board the missing plane are distraught as they await word of their loved ones.
Nothing causes an airplane to come down from 35,000 feet other than things that can be catastrophic.
Officials say it could be days, weeks, or even months before they have clues into the mystery of the plane's disappearance. They hope to find it before the batteries on the plane's black box run out, as they only last for 30 days. Investigators are using every tool they can get their hands on in the search for the missing plane, including satellite images provided by a company in Colorado.
Ukraine's acting president is seeking an increase in the country's armed services. Alexander Turchinov called on Parliament to turn the country's Interior Ministry troops into a National Guard to defend the country against aggression. He's also called for the mobilization of military reservists and volunteers into the armed forces. Turchinov is at the center of the storm in Ukraine, but he is not alone. As George Thomas shows us, he's a man of deep faith and prayer.
Pastor Volodymyr Kunets couldn't be prouder of his country's new leader.
He is a born-again Christian and loves God.
For several years, Alexander Turchinov, Ukraine's interim president, has attended Kunets' church in Kiev and serves as deacon.
It is very rare, not just for Ukraine, but the entire region, for a Baptist Christian to run the country.
Turchinov recently told a Christian magazine that God is working in his country. Despite the political chaos, he's asking believers worldwide to pray.
I'm so glad he's been given such a position, but from another perspective, it is very scary because we are experiencing very difficult times. We are bankrupt as a nation, and there are many enemies who don't want to see Ukraine do well.
When protests started last November, Ukrainian Christians found themselves playing the role of peacemaker.
How old are you?
Ostap Kirdivik is a leader of the anti-government demonstrators.
During the gunfights, there was a priest who was standing there and who gave his last words and last services to the dying people, and he personally told me that 20 people died on his hands.
Men like Father Theodosi Ivashko literally risked their lives to stand in the gap.
It happened just a few feet from here. Hundreds of Ukrainian police stood on one side and anti-government demonstrators on the other, and we took our place in the middle, calling for calm.
Victoria Semenikina traveled to Maidan, ground zero of the mass demonstrations, to pray for families that lost loved ones. She also gives thanks for men like Father Ivashko.
I saw Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, and other Christians helping those for and against the government. These men and women are also heroes, as much as those who gave their lives for freedom.
For months here on Maidan, the Ukrainian church across denominations played the role of peacemaker. Today, It's preaching a message of reconciliation.
We are preaching this message in almost every service and encouraging people to demonstrate in practical ways how we can help heal our nation.
Parliament member and well-known Christian Alexander Dubovoy says his country has a small window of opportunity to get things right or else.
People are clearly not happy, but we cannot overcome evil with evil. We have to be more forgiving.
Days after the massacre that killed more than 100 and injured some 600 others, Larissa Litvin's church erected this tent for counseling.
So many people have come for prayer. Entire families with children are coming and asking how they can help move our country forward after all the violence and bloodshed. This is a critical moment for us.
One that Litvin and believers here say must be covered in prayer and forgiveness. George Thomas, CBN News, Kiev, Ukraine.
On Monday, Israel displayed the weapons Israeli commandos seized last week in the Red Sea. Israeli and U.S. intelligence tracked the weapons from Iran on their way to the Gaza Strip. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the opportunity to send a warning to the West. Chris Mitchell has more from the Israeli naval base at the Red Sea port of Eilat.
The weapons included 40 long-range missiles, nearly 200 mortars, and 400,000 rounds of ammunition. Iran hid the missiles inside shipping containers and surrounded them with cement made in Iran. If these missiles made it to the Gaza Strip, they represented a major threat to Israel's home front. It would have put 5 million Israelis, more than 60% of the population, within range.
It would have made a huge difference if these rockets would have made it into the terrorists' hands. We did a good thing here.
The M302 missiles have a range of more than 120 miles or 200 kilometers.
When you go to 200 kilometers, it's almost not important anymore. It reaches all the important targets in Israel.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu inspected the weapons and said the shipment reveals the true face of Iran, and criticized Western diplomats who reach out to Iran's leaders but ignore Iran's actions.
We even saw representatives of the world powers shaking hands and smiling with the heads of Iran's regime. At the same time, we were unloading these missiles here in Eilat.
He also warned the West they're a future target of Iran.
Does anyone truly believe that Iran has given up its plans to develop nuclear weapons or long-range ballistic missiles that are capable of carrying nuclear warheads to Europe and the United States?
He warned one day Iran could hide a nuclear device in a container and ship it to any port in the world, and said the West ignores Iran's nuclear program at its own peril.
So my message today is simple. Those engaged in self-deception must awaken from their slumber. We cannot allow Iran to have the capability to produce nuclear weapons. Today, Israel thwarted the danger to its people. Tomorrow, if Iran's military nuclear program is not stopped, the whole world could be imperiled.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Israeli port of Eilat on the Red Sea.
Fighting in Syria's civil war has killed more than 10,000 children. On top of that, 5.5 million children are suffering the effects of major trauma. That is according to UNICEF. Meanwhile, the 13 nuns kidnapped by al-Qaeda-linked militants were released yesterday. The Greek Orthodox nuns attended a prayer service in Damascus. 2 bishops and a priest are still missing.
The U.S. government is set to ramp up its snooping on federal workers. An electronic monitoring system will keep close tabs on government employees. We're talking about 5 million federal workers who have secret clearances. A computerized system will continually monitor their behavior through multiple databases. No word on when this sweeping system will be put into place, but it's designed to catch rogue agents and workers like former NSA analyst Edward Snowden, who leaked government secrets to the media.
Spain is commemorating the 10-year anniversary of Europe's worst Islamic terror attack. On March 11, 2004, terrorists targeted commuter trains in Madrid with 10 bombs concealed in backpacks during morning rush hour, killing 191 people and wounding more than 2,000. King Juan Carlos and Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy are joining families of victims for a church service in their memory. The ceremony is one of several events being held around the city. 28 people went on trial in 2007 and 18 were convicted of taking part in the attacks.
All across Japan, people observed a minute of silence today, remembering the devastating tsunami that hit the country 3 years ago. The disasters, known in Japan as 311, left tens of thousands dead and triggered a nuclear crisis. Survivors held memorial events throughout the nation. The country has struggled to rebuild and clean up radiation from power plant meltdowns. Japan has put aside $250 billion for the reconstruction, expected to last until 2016.
Coming up, combating human trafficking in Nepal, the simple step you can take to help end a modern atrocity. That's coming up after this.
A Kansas judge is siding with a doctor who lost her license in a late-term abortion case. Dr. Ann Kristen Newhouse proved second opinions in cases for the late Dr. George Tiller. He needed them under Kansas law to legally terminate the pregnancies of 11 young patients ages 10 to 18. The state board had revoked her license for failing to provide adequate mental health exams in those cases. The board ruled her records didn't show that she had done thorough examinations. Monday, the judge ordered the board to reconsider its sanctions.
Gospel for Asia marked International Women's Day by announcing a new documentary about the suffering of women around the world. The film is called Veil of Tears. It tells the plight of millions of women who face all kinds of abuse like infanticide, bride burning, and sex trafficking. The founder of Gospel for Asia says, "We have a moral obligation to care for these women, act on their behalf, and bring hope and restoration to their lives." GFA ministers to spiritual needs and gives women practical resources to gain freedom. The new film, Veil of Tears, is narrated by Christian recording artist Natalie Grant. It'll be released in 19 cities across the U.S. on March 28th. Churches can also show a simulcast free of charge on that weekend.
The Christian band Vota is teaming up with the ministry Tiny Hands International to fight human trafficking along the border between India and Nepal. CBN reporter Angela Zadopak talked with lead singer Brian Olsen about their efforts.
The government of Nepal has given Tiny Hands permission to put a border monitoring station at each one of the border points between Nepal and India. And they train 1 or 2 border guards, and they're literally allowed to interview and intercept everybody coming across the border. When something looks suspicious, when there's a gentleman with a young girl, they're able to separate them and interview. And these border stations are effective. They're intercepting about 200 to 300 girls per year.
How much money does it take to fund one station at the border?
Well, for the 5 years, it's $30,000 per station for over 5 years. There's 26 border points between Nepal and India, and we decided as a band we wanted to support and staff 5 of them for 5 years.
How can people learn more about donating to this cause, and what is in the future for Vota?
Well, simply, the campaign is called Love Found Me, and if you go to lovefoundme.org, that's where you download the album. And basically, you just have to watch a quick 4-minute video from me talking about the campaign, and then each listener has a choice. If you do choose to donate, whatever amount you give, all goes toward 100% goes towards this campaign. And then we've got a special bonus album for all those fans that decide to donate and join our cause.
Definitely prayers for everyone over in Nepal and India. So thank you, Brian.
Up next, an unusual treatment that's helping Alzheimer's patients drastically improve, and it doesn't require a prescription. We're going to tell you what it is coming up after this.
Welcome back. People are eating too much sugar and need to cut back. That's the word from the World Health Organization. The WHO's expert panel is recommending your daily sugar intake should be just 5% of your total calories. That's half of what the agency had previously suggested. And it includes sugars added into foods along with those in honey, syrup, and fruit juices. The panel says cutting back on sugar would fight cavities and obesity. And of course, obesity ties into numerous other diseases like diabetes, heart problems, and more.
Far more people may be dying from Alzheimer's disease than have been reported. The Centers for Disease Control says nearly 85,000 people died from Alzheimer's in 2010. But that number is really closer to 500,000. According to a study from Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, that would make Alzheimer's the third leading cause of death in the U.S., not far behind heart disease, which is number one with nearly 600,000 deaths in 2010, and cancer with 575,000.
Well, 5 million Americans currently have Alzheimer's disease, and that is a number that is expected to greatly increase as baby boomers age. But one product may be helping. As Lori Johnson shows us, coconut oil can slow the progression of Alzheimer's and may even prevent it.
Steve Newport's Alzheimer's symptoms reversed after he started taking coconut oil. His wife documented Steve's astounding progress in her book, Alzheimer's Disease, What If There Was a Cure? This clock test illustrates his dramatic improvement. Here's his clock drawing before the coconut oil. 2 weeks into the treatment, he drew this, and look at the change after 5 weeks. Steve's story spread like wildfire, and his wife is busy gathering the reaction.
Some of these responses have been quite dramatic, and I do have a collection now of almost 220 reports, mostly from caregivers and some from the person themselves, reporting that they saw improvement after they started taking coconut oil.
All these testimonials are turning the Alzheimer's community on its ear. For example, at the world-renowned Bird Alzheimer's Institute, people can't stop talking about them.
When a patient or a family member comes in with a patient and they're interviewing with the physicians, they always have a question. I've heard about coconut oil. What's going on with that? At least up until this time, all we can say is there's anecdotal information that it may be beneficial. There hasn't been any kind of research study that's ever been done.
That's about to change with the Institute's first study of how coconut oil affects human beings with Alzheimer's. If the study finds evidence that coconut oil helps, doctors will finally have the proof they need to begin recommending it to their patients.
I think that they feel uncomfortable making a recommendation of something that they don't feel justified by the science behind it. And that's part of the reason we're going to do the study, is to determine, can we then provide that justification?
Here's how it appears the coconut oil works. In patients with Alzheimer's, insulin resistance prevents their brain cells from accepting glucose, their primary fuel. Without it, the cells die. But there is an alternate fuel known as ketones, which cells easily accept. Ketones are metabolized in the liver after eating coconut oil. Insulin resistance doesn't just affect people who have Alzheimer's, but also folks with dementia, MS, diabetes, Parkinson's, ALS, even autism. So can coconut oil help these people too? It appears so, at least some of them. Doctors diagnosed Sam Stout with Parkinson's disease 7 years ago. He soon began losing the ability to perform many functions. But 5 months ago, he started taking coconut oil, and his life changed again.
I can now write. I've written letters, which I hadn't done in 3 years. I can swirl a wine glass. I can beat an egg, I can grate cheese, all these things I couldn't do. And I think I have better balance.
He also noticed mental and emotional improvement.
I think I'm clear-headed, more clear-headed. People have said to me, you look great this year. And I can only attribute it to the coconut oil because that's the only thing that has changed.
Then there's Butch Matchlin, an American living in Mexico City. He's suffered with ALS for almost 5 years and says his symptoms have reversed thanks to coconut oil.
Yeah, I can pick up, and there was a time when I had difficulty with that, okay? Not just picking it up, but it was just holding on, just getting a hold of it, okay? Getting my fingers to go around it, okay? And that's gone.
While Butch isn't walking perfectly, his legs are stronger and about to get even better.
I have bad knees, okay, from the past, okay? But now, okay, I've improved enough that the doctors have said that I qualify for a new knee in my left leg.
So while not everyone has experienced great results with coconut oil, there are plenty who have. Enough that the medical community will spend time and money learning exactly who it helps and why. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
As Lori mentioned, the Bird Alzheimer's Institute is conducting the first ever scientific study on the effects of coconut oil on Alzheimer's patients, and we'll let you know the results of that study when it is complete.
Indeed. Stay with us. We're coming right back. And finally this hour, the crisis in Ukraine is shaking the world.
That's right, but it had a more personal impact on one American family. Don and Lisa Jenkins finally arrived home Sunday after nearly a month stuck in Kiev. They went to adopt 4 kids and found themselves in the midst of the revolution with no idea when they'd get home.
Every day it was like, oh, just a couple more days.
Jenkins, with 4 new kids in tow, were greeted by family and friends who had been praying for their safe return. They say their faith in Christ gave them strength.
When we would get to the lowest part, we would get a Facebook message from somebody at church or a coworker that would say, no, just hang in there, the Lord's with you. And those little things is really what got us through.
Praise God. Well, after their long battle, the Jenkins family is relieved to be back, and they can honestly say there is no place like home.
Back in
Can you
Kansas.
imagine they
Beautiful.
go there to adopt the kids and they get stuck in the midst of all of that?
I tell you,
Wow.
unexpected. Oh.
Wow.
God bless them. Well, that is going to do it now for CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you join us next time. Have a great day. God bless.